I was recovering from surgery when my neighbor asked if her cousin could park in my driveway for just 2 days. 2 weeks later, I got a tow notice on my own car. "We filed a lease," she said. I called the police, and that's when the real war began. I'm a 46-year-old woman living in Oxnard, California, in a one-story ranch house that I paid off after my divorce. It's not in a gated community or anything fancy, but it's quiet.
Most people keep to themselves. I liked that.
After everything I went through with my ex, I was happy to live alone with my dog and not answer to anyone. Back in March, I had rotator cuff surgery. My right shoulder had been giving me hell for years and finally tore during a work accident, slipped while lifting a crate. Surgery went well, but the recovery was rough. I couldn't raise my arm past my chest, couldn't drive, and needed help with basic stuff. My sister came by every few days to drop off food, and I just tried to get through it. About a week after I got home, there was a knock at my door. It was my neighbor, Marlene. We'd never been close. She lived alone, too, maybe 10 years older than me. Her lawn was always neat, and she kept her blinds closed. That kind of neighbor. Not rude, just private. She brought over a tin of cookies, store-bought, but in a holiday tin like it was Christmas. She asked how I was doing, commented on my sling, and then said, "My cousin's flying in from Texas this weekend. His hotel's got limited parking, and we're packed over here. Do you mind if he parks in your driveway? Just Friday to Sunday." I was tired, in pain, and frankly, didn't see the harm. My car's out front anyway, parked on the street.
"Sure," I said.
Just for the weekend. Big mistake. The cousin showed up Friday night. Beat up Ford Escape. Faded silver, bald tires, a crack across the windshield, and a side mirror held on with duct tape. I figured he was just one of those guys who didn't care about looks. I never saw him get out. Never saw him around. The car just sat there. Sunday came. Then Monday. Then the next Friday. Still sitting. I texted Marlene. No reply. Called her. Voicemail. I even walked next door and rang her bell. No answer. By day 10, I was starting to feel better and a little more mobile. That's when I noticed the orange sticker on my car parked out front. Tow warning, unauthorized vehicle. I almost laughed. Then I read the fine print. It wasn't from the city. It was from our HOA. I don't live in a strict HOA, but we do have some rules. They don't usually patrol unless someone complains. My guess? Marlene. I called the HOA office. "Ma'am, we received a notice that the driveway spot behind your house is leased to a visitor." "Excuse me? We have a signed lease on file. Marlene, redacted last name, and a Mr. Luis Ortega. It states he has use of the driveway through July 1st. There's even a clause that you authorized it during your recovery period." I almost dropped the phone. That's my driveway. There's no lease. I never signed anything. "Well, we have a copy, and it has your printed name and signature." They emailed it to me. I opened the PDF and felt sick. My name was on it, but it wasn't my handwriting. Not even close. The signature looked like someone tried to copy mine from a check or a delivery slip. There was a paragraph stating I agreed to temporary reassignment of driveway privileges due to incapacitation. The date was from the day after I spoke to her. I walked over and banged on Marlene's door. I didn't care if I was wearing pajamas and holding my arm like it was glued to my side. She didn't open it, just yelled through the wood. "Talk to a lawyer. We filed it already. It's valid. You forged my name. You offered it. You don't remember? Maybe you were medicated." I don't know what scared me more, that she said it like it was no big deal, or that she said it like she had planned it. I called the police. That was the beginning of everything getting worse. The officer who came out was a younger guy, maybe late 20s, trying to act like he was in control but clearly didn't want to get involved in neighbor drama. He looked at the driveway, looked at the car, looked at me with my arm still in a sling, and sighed like he already knew this was going to be a paperwork headache. I explained everything. How Marlene asked for a couple days, how it had now been 2 weeks, how she forged a lease, how the HOA was threatening me. He went next door. She answered for him. I stood at the edge of my property, trying to hear. She spoke calmly, too calmly. Told him she had my verbal permission and that the paperwork just formalized what we agreed on. She said I was under heavy medication and likely forgot that she was just trying to help her cousin avoid a ticket. When the officer came back, he didn't look me in the eye. "It's a civil issue, ma'am. If you believe the signature was forged, you'll need to take her to small claims court. I can't force the vehicle off the property without a court order." I felt my heart pounding in my ears. "So, I just have to let them use my driveway?" "You can talk to a lawyer," he said. "I'll file a report, but you need a court ruling to have the car removed." Marlene stood in her doorway while he said that, arms crossed, watching me, smiling. I spent the next 3 days calling lawyers, explaining the story over and over. Most of them didn't want to touch it. The one who finally agreed to help said I'd need to prove the signature was forged and get a judge to issue a removal order. The soonest hearing I could get? 5 weeks out. In the meantime, I couldn't park in my own driveway. I moved my car to a spot across the street, which meant walking farther with one arm and painkillers in my system. My sister was furious. She wanted to go yell at Marlene herself, but I told her no. I didn't want to give her any more ammo. But Marlene wasn't done. 3 days after the police visit, I got a violation notice from the HOA. Not about the driveway, about my backyard fence. Said it was falling into disrepair and had exposed nails. I'd lived there 6 years and never had a complaint. The fence was fine. I checked it. Nothing wrong. Then I noticed the photo attached to the complaint. It was taken from Marlene's side, through a gap in her shrubs. She'd gone looking. A few days later, my trash bins were tagged for non-compliance, wrong placement, apparently. Then a noise complaint from her filed with the city. I was watching TV at 8 p.m., volume at 14. I started keeping a notebook. Every date, every incident, every call. I filed a counter-complaint with the HOA about the forged lease. They said they were reviewing it. Then late one night, I heard a loud scraping outside my window. I looked out. Marlene's cousin was dragging an old broken-down motorcycle into my side yard. That's when I realized they weren't just using my driveway. They were trying to claim it. I went outside the next morning, and the motorcycle was still there. Leaning on its kickstand, half covered by a torn tarp. Flat tires. Rust all over the chain. It hadn't run in years. Anyone could see that. It was placed awkwardly, too, right next to my trash bins like it belonged there. I took photos and called the HOA. They said, "We'll investigate," which is HOA speak for, "We're not doing anything until it becomes our problem." Then I noticed something else. The name on the mailbox next to mine had changed. It used to say, Alvarez in a little sticker above the slot. Now it said M and L Ortega. Same font. Same size. Like she'd printed it at home. My name wasn't anywhere. My box was blank. That night, I checked the county records website out of curiosity. Looked at my address and then hers. Nothing had changed in the system, but something was happening behind the scenes. I drove to the city clerk's office the next morning. Took me 30 minutes with my shoulder in a brace and pain meds making me dizzy. That's where it got real. There had been an easement application filed. By Marlene. It was sitting in a stack at the clerk's counter in a manila folder. Public record. She was applying for shared access rights to my driveway based on established use and verbal agreement. The reason? She claimed her property had historically lacked adequate access for secondary vehicles. I went numb. She was trying to turn a favor into permanent legal use. And here's the worst part. She'd backdated it. Claimed I'd agreed back in January that the cousin had been visiting regularly and storing property since then. That we had a friendly arrangement. This wasn't just petty revenge or a bad neighbor situation anymore. This was a land grab. I faxed a copy of the document to my attorney. He called me immediately. "She's setting up a claim for a prescriptive easement. If it stands long enough and you don't fight it, she could gain legal rights over that part of your land. Even if it's a lie? If she has enough evidence and you don't contest it? Yes." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room with my arm wrapped in ice, Every light off, the glow of the street lamp casting long shadows across the front yard. And I just stared at that silver Ford Escape. Still parked. Still taking up space. She wasn't just trying to use me. She was trying to erase me. The next twist came quietly. A letter in the mail. No return address. Just typed, folded in thirds, slipped into an envelope with my name on it. Inside, it read, "You should be careful accusing people of things you can't prove. Things happen to women who live alone."
No signature. No handwriting.
Just that one sentence. I didn't show it to the police right away. I didn't even tell my sister. I just stared at it for a long time. I'd never felt unsafe in that neighborhood before, even after the divorce, even with the shoulder injury. But now I was locking the doors twice, checking the blinds. I stopped walking my dog after dark. A few days later, a guy showed up at my door. Said he was from Lease's towing service. Claimed he was there to inspect the driveway. What? I asked. He handed me a clipboard. Just need to verify clearance for a second vehicle. We were told this is a dual-use space. I shut the door without saying a word. Called my lawyer again. Turns out Marlene's cousin had filed paperwork to register the address for his own business. He was using my driveway as his commercial location. He listed it on Google Maps. My address. My house. My private space. I went online and saw it myself. The listing said, Luis Ortega Towing and Recovery, conveniently located near the 101. Reliable. Fast. Local. There was a photo of my driveway attached, taken from the street. That night, I printed every screenshot. Got security cameras installed the next morning. 2 in the front, 1 on the side yard, where the bike was still leaning. By the end of the week, someone had slashed my tires. The police finally took it seriously then. Took photos, opened a case number, but still said they had no suspects. My camera on that side didn't catch the actual moment. They came in low and fast, under the motion sensor. I started parking at my sister's house and having her drive me back. That's when Marlene filed a harassment claim. Against me. She said I was stalking her cousin. That I invaded his work area. That I created a hostile environment on shared property. And somehow, unbelievably, the HOA sent me a warning. She was turning my life into paperwork hell. And all I had done was say yes to 2 days of parking. 2 weeks later, I came home to find a city inspector in my yard. Not HOA this time, city. He was measuring the side of my house with a laser tape, clipboard in hand. I stepped outside. Can I help you? He looked up, surprised. Oh, you live here? I own this house. Why? He showed me a work order. Someone had submitted a permit application for a driveway expansion. The plans listed my address. The form claimed the work was pre-authorized by property co-owner. That name?
Luis Ortega.
I felt like the floor tilted under me. I took the paper, and again. It had my name typed in the authorization line, and a shaky, off version of my signature. Same fake curve in the J. Same slant in the Y. They were trying to expand their claim. That night I sat down with my lawyer, and we filed a restraining order against both Marlene and Luis. We added the forged signatures, the easement application, the Google business listing, the false harassment complaint. We took it all to the court. The judge granted a temporary injunction, barely. We got the listing taken down. We posted a legal notice on the property. We filed for a cease and desist. But 2 nights later, someone broke the side window of my garage. They didn't take anything. They just left a folded piece of paper on the floor. You don't scare easy. We'll see how long that lasts. The alarm didn't trigger. They knew where the sensor gaps were. I stopped sleeping altogether after that. And Marlene? Still smiling when I saw her outside. Still waving like nothing ever happened. I realized then, I wasn't just dealing with a bad neighbor. I was dealing with people who didn't believe I'd ever fight back. And maybe they weren't wrong. 3 days after the break-in, I got a letter from the county tax assessor's office. It said my property value had been reassessed due to mixed-use activity on site. Mixed use. Because of the Google listing. Because of the fake business. Because of the driveway. My taxes were going up. I called immediately and got a woman named Renee on the phone. She sounded exhausted, like she'd been dealing with junk like this all week. I explained everything, slowly, carefully. That I lived alone. That I was recovering from surgery. That someone was using my driveway to run a scam business. That I didn't approve any of it. She asked for my parcel number and pulled up the file. "I'm looking at it now," she said. "Looks like there was an anonymous tip sent in. Someone submitted photos and documentation claiming you were operating an auto repair service."
What?
Who would? There's also a statement attached. It says you agreed to lease the space to a third party due to medical limitations. You were allegedly making passive income. They're saying I rented my driveway? Yes. To run a fake garage? Yes. It was too specific.
Too polished. Someone had thought this through.
I sat there in silence. Renee lowered her voice. "If I were you, I'd find out exactly what else they filed. This feels coordinated." That night, I pulled up the public property database again. Same tool I'd used to find the easement application. And there it was, a quitclaim deed. Filed under review. Not finalized. Someone had attempted to transfer partial ownership of my property.
To Luis Ortega.
I stared at the screen for 10 straight minutes. It was dated the same day I got the "You Don't Scare Easy" note. The signature looked like mine again. Different pen, but the same slant. The same incorrect tail on the J. They were trying to steal my house. Not just harass me. Not just pressure me.
Take it.
And for the first time in my life, I thought I might lose everything because I was too polite to say no. After the quitclaim deed scare, I stopped playing defense. My lawyer filed an emergency injunction against any and all property filings under my parcel number. We got a court date set to challenge the forged documents, and I finally filed a police report that used the word fraud instead of just neighbor dispute. But Marlene didn't stop. She started throwing little things into my yard. Half-empty soda cans. Wadded-up napkins. A plastic bag full of dog poop that clearly wasn't from my dog. Every day something new. Always just enough to annoy me, but never enough to prove anything. I installed more cameras. The next week, the footage caught her walking out at 2:14 a.m. and tossing an old sandwich over the fence.
Clear as day.
I showed it to the cops. Doesn't really prove intent, they said. Could be accidental. Of course. Always just short of enough. Then came the day of the court hearing. I sat in the hallway outside the courtroom with my lawyer, my arm finally healing, but my nerves wrecked. Luis showed up wearing a suit that didn't fit and a smug look like he thought this was just paperwork. Marlene never came in. When the judge reviewed the documents, especially the deed, his tone changed. He ordered handwriting analysis. He issued a full restraining order. He froze any use of my address in business filings. He even recommended criminal investigation. For a moment, I thought that would be it. But 2 nights later, my front door was smeared with something.
Brown.
Sticky. Smelled like rotting meat. I never figured out what it was. And taped to the window above it, written in marker. "You got your win. Let's see what it costs." I still live here. The cameras are up. The lawyer's on speed dial. My dog's older now, and sometimes I wonder if he even remembers the quiet we used to have. People say I won. They say it like there's a prize. But I don't sleep through the night anymore. I don't answer my door unless I'm expecting someone. And every time I pull into my own driveway, I still check the rearview mirror, just in case someone else thinks they have a right to be here. Some fights don't end. They just stop getting talked about.